She was probably 16, 16 and a half initially.
Oh, so you had like a 2 to 3 year relationship?
Well, some play or a session, these are all references, terms that
Yeah.
BDSM use, and then which ultimately got very out of hand. A huge tragedy. Enjoying so much to where I lose control. And I believe I lost control. While this was occurring, at some point it became evident that I don't think she was breathing anymore.
You know, you drive around with them in the car. Were you ever worried about, man, if I get stopped by
Oh, yeah.
the police or if I get stopped?
I was all the time. You know, very common because I was, patrol for a long time. And she was put in the refrigerator and put in there, door closed, and seemingly problem solved.
On June 5th, 2014, workers in Walworth County, Wisconsin, made a discovery that would shock investigators. 2 suitcases abandoned along a rural roadway, each containing human remains. The victims were later identified as 19-year-old Jenny Gomez and 37-year-old Laura Simonson, women who had vanished years apart in different states, both now in severe states of decomposition. As detectives worked backward, they learned both women had traveled to meet the same man after connecting with him online, a 52-year-old former police officer named Steven Zelich. The meetings were secretive and centered around a hidden world of BDSM. What initially appeared to be an unsolved dumping case soon unraveled into something far more disturbing, spanning multiple states, damning evidence, and years of concealment. Now, sitting inside an interrogation room, investigators needed Steven Zelich to explain how 2 women who trusted him ended up sealed in luggages and what really happened behind closed doors when no one else was watching.
Jenny, tell me how you met Jenny.
Jenny was met online on a website, initially on a website, Collar Me.
Is it COLLAR?
ME, yes.
Okay.
And that is a meeting site, but that's BDSM related. That's
What does BDSM stand for? I'm sorry.
that's a kind of a alternative bondage, discipline, submission, dominance type of website.
Okay. So you meet her on the website, and
We talk, and she's got a profile. I had a profile, and at some point either. I don't recall whether I first maybe approached her or she approached me, but nonetheless we started conversing back and forth on the website.
It's like a social networking as well?
Yes.
For it? And did she go by her full name or did she go by her
No,
name?
she went by her a handle. You create a handle or a name, and I didn't know right away, but we I believe it's through yesterday's conversation. I think her handle was Princess JMG.
do you know how old she is?
I want to say at the time she was approximately 19.
And where was she from?
Well, initially it was out west. It was Oregon, and what stuck in my mind was Eugene, Oregon.
Okay. So how does she make it to Wisconsin?
She flies in.
Okay.
And let me just for full clarification, she was 19, and I probably made initial contact on Collar Me with her. She was probably 16, 16 and a half initially.
Oh, so you had like a 2 to 3 year relationship?
Well, a period of time, and then she was 16, 16 and a half-ish, and then there was a period of time of no contact at all, a couple of years.
At this point, Steven had already been presented with years' worth of evidence against him, and after unofficially admitting to the detectives that he was tired of hiding this secret, he agreed to give the full detail of what happened to Jenny and Laura. Yet the truth was more chilling than the detectives anticipated.
I guess as it turns out, she was going to school. I believe she went to like a junior college type thing, and then she recontacted me after quite a period, a good period of time of absence. Maybe a year to 2 years during that time. So that's where you have the age difference.
Sure.
So she's 19, and then we reconnect contact-wise at that point.
Okay. So at some point, in this, you end up, or she ends up wanting to come
Two more.
for you guys to meet.
Yeah.
Okay, and where was that?
Well, and she flew in.
From Oregon?
I want to say Oregon, but I believe it could have been Vegas because I believe she had a week to 2 week vacation with friends or whatever. I think she was in Vegas, and then from Vegas she was coming to Wisconsin.
So then once you guys meet, what happens?
Well, we meet, and then that would have been, we would have met on a, it would have been a Friday. It would have been a Friday.
She flew in on a Friday?
Yeah.
So you go right from the airport to the hotel?
Yep, pretty much right directly to the hotel.
Okay.
Trying to think if there was any stop, or I don't believe any food stop or anything like that. I think right to the hotel.
Okay. Did she have any belongings with her?
Yeah, she had a suitcase or two. She had a pink suitcase, pinkish, and possibly another bag, another smaller suitcase.
Okay. Was her intention, in your speaking to her, was her intention to move here?
Yeah, I think overall, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was. Her intention was going to be long term.
With you?
Yes. With the foundation with this type of BDSM type of relationship.
Okay.
That was the premise.
Now, when you say that, what do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know how familiar you guys are with BDSM and all that, but it's a dominant submission type of control hierarchy type of basis. Some people see some of the accessories and some of that, toys, accessories, and then they don't understand exactly what it is. It can be certainly sensual based, but that's generally not even the focus.
Okay.
It's more of a type of interaction. Leadership follower, dominant submission type of dynamic.
Stephen began explaining the nature of his relationship with the 19-year-old Jenny, saying it was a relationship rooted in BDSM, a consensual adult dynamic involving power, control, and trust. Yet as he was about to reveal, it was far from that.
So once you guys go to the hotel room, what occurs in the hotel?
Well, the short of it, I want to give you the short version because boy, we talked at length. The short version is, it was Friday night. Friday she arrived. We stayed Friday night and Saturday. And Saturday, because the checkout was going to be like Sunday, 12-ish or so, whenever the normal checkout is. And so we spent Friday and Saturday there. Even I think Saturday during the day we even went east all the way to the lakefront. And in between that time was, there was this interaction, general interaction, nothing too serious or significant. I guess you could call it partially a get to know you period, a little bit casual.
Like part of the BDSM, you mean, interaction?
Yeah, a little bit of that. Kind of mixed with, you would call normal. We call it vanilla. Vanilla is a reference to non-BDSM.
Okay.
And so then that's Saturday, spent the day. Had some interaction, physical interaction, Saturday night, BDSM related. And then probably Sunday morning, again, knowing that checkout's going to be 12-ish or so. Then we had, early in the morning, we had a so-called, some play or a session. These are all references, terms that BDSM use, and then which ultimately got very out of hand and ended in huge tragedy. But the short version of it, and we went through this extensively
Sure.
last night and today. There's an activity or reference to breath play, breath control. That is accomplished through very common BDSM. Can be choking, can be closing off the nose, nostrils, can be rope around the, can be some people are so advanced they do. It's all related to breath constriction.
Okay.
And many times the motive, I guess, for that is, or the basis for that is, again, control. Many times the person receiving it enjoys that too, almost kind of I'm hardly an expert, but kind of like an autoerotic type
Sure.
of effect. And ultimately, that Sunday morning, she was, I was using rope, and ultimately, there was constriction, and then it would release, and various touching, and ultimately I got probably very excited. There's no doubt there's an erotic sensation, and while this was occurring, at some point it became evident that I don't think she was breathing anymore. And then I also, and this was explained, and caused by the rope. There's no question about that. There's no other cause possible. And put her on the floor, and it wasn't long thereafter. And you guys may know the term. I forget the term. That last breath, that expelling of air.
Okay.
It was pretty apparent that there was no breathing, and this went way too far.
By framing Jenny's death as the result of consensual BDSM choking, he's attempting to argue that it was an accident rather than an intentional killing. This is a tactic sometimes referred to as the 50 Shades defense, where suspects claim a partner consented to dangerous acts, hoping to reduce a murder charge to manslaughter by removing intent. Courts, however, are increasingly clear that consent does not apply when serious harm or death occurs, especially when the actions involved are inherently life-threatening.
And you pull, constrict, release, constrict, release, constrict, and that's very, very erotic for me, control-wise, very erotic, and can be very erotic for the person receiving. She was, you could tell there were sounds of pleasure. She brought her head back, very, in a pleasurable way, it seemed, or it appeared, and very, very exciting, intense, that type of thing, and ultimately, obviously my responsibility. I can't lose control. It may be pleasurable and enjoyable, but it's far more important. I shouldn't be enjoying so much to where I lose control. And I believe I lost control, or I lost sense. I lost the monitoring aspect of it.
Okay.
And I think I started to enjoy the session and the activity to a point where I was no longer monitoring like I should have.
You kind of described, so it's around 3 times then.
2 to 3 times,
Then-
yes.
Then there's some tension, then a release, then a tension. So for you, is the kind of going up and down, or?
Maybe, but overall it's pretty high. Only
Okay.
because it's the total control. It's the actual act, the breath play itself. It's the overall maybe submission and control overall. I will add, just so you get a picture, the rope is around, So you get that muffled sound. It sounded very pleasurable. She'd bring her head back, on your shoulder, and it seemed to be very erotic and pleasurable for both. It certainly was, for me, but it appeared to be for her too.
What Stephen is trying to say is that Jenny was somehow enjoying this. But that argument doesn't really hold up, because people don't typically find being killed pleasurable. It would also be good to remember Stephen didn't even try to call an ambulance. He hid her body in a suitcase and dumped her with no remorse, only sharing the murder now because the detectives already had evidence. But then Stephen began explaining what he did once he stuffed Jenny's body in the suitcase, and it was more horrific than anyone thought.
Don't you fucking move. Hey, fucking prick. You can't say shit to me. In the car. Fucking shut the fuck up.
Now, imagine seeing so much more. Well, that's why we went all out and decided to create channels in every niche, which are still based on true crime for you to enjoy. I mean, who doesn't like seeing people's reactions like these?
I'll spit on you. I want to cry. Oh my god.
Hey, Jesus.
From no commentary to just interrogation, because I know some of you guys hate that. But that's not the end. We really enjoy what we are building, so we have an exclusive Patreon community where they get first-hand access to anything we post and all uncensored footage and images. And some of the things are truly horrifying.
So after you unload the luggage in your vehicle,
Take or
What
load it
happens
in my
then?
vehicle or whatever, and drive home. And we believe this is August-ish.
that's what we were told as
Yeah.
well, like you had said,
And that's warm. So she was taken, the suitcase was taken. Of course, now what do I do? I'm still in the, I have no idea what I want to do or what I'm going to do. I have no idea. She comes in, the pink suitcase comes into the house. I take her out. Well, I empty the refrigerator because my only option is how long do I have with the heat of August before you're forced to make a decision. She was put in the refrigerator, and really, my thinking I think was to buy time and figure out what I'm going to do.
Put in the refrigerator inside the suitcase still, or
No.
just
Outside the suitcase. Outside the suitcase, and of course you can imagine you get the shelving and all that. I have to take the shelving out, and now you pretty much have the empty shell of a refrigerator, and put in there, door closed, and seemingly problem solved. Well, I'm making almost light of it because it's not problem's not solved, but it gives me time because I keep the temperature issue.
Correct.
Sure.
So that is where she stayed for quite a while, and then in further discussion.
Pay attention to the tone Stephen uses to say all of this. He just explained how he stored Jenny's corpse in his home refrigerator for months, like it was just another day for him. It might seem that this is something detectives wouldn't pay attention to, but even the tone in which a suspect speaks about certain horrific actions shows the detectives whether the suspect had any remorse, and whether the actions that took place were due to fear or a disturbing level of emotional detachment.
November of 13 approximately is when I take her out, put her in the suitcase, back out with the second suitcase.
is it? She went back into the original suitcase, that pink one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then in the trunk of the car, now because that's now being winter, November of 13 into this past winter.
Okay, now you're saying the trunk with the other suitcase. What do you mean by the other suitcase?
The other suitcase is a second incident that occurred November early November of 13 in Minnesota.
If the supposedly accidental murder of Jenny wasn't horrifying enough, Stephen now casually brings up the second suitcase in his trunk, containing a completely different woman, 37-year-old Laura Simonson.
Without getting into details about that incident, what occurred in that incident?
Very similar basis, very similar BDSM, very similar circumstances. And that occurred in Rochester, Minnesota, where I talked to the detective today. And early November, I think the first week. And that was the first incident after Jenny. I mean, that was the first in-person contact, BDSM related. It was Jenny, and then second girl, Laura.
Okay. So you didn't have any more BDSM meetings with other females,
No.
basically in that year,
Correct.
or what would it be, 8 months, 9 months,
Correct.
10 months?
Correct.
Okay. So when you say very similar, you're saying that you use the breathe control?
Breathe control, probably a little bit more elaborate than the second one. They had rope, and then I think I did utilize and some nostril, all the elements. I think it was a little bit longer session,
Okay.
and maybe a little bit more extensive, or a little bit more. What's what I'm looking for? Did a little bit more things, or utilized a little bit more techniques or tools, so to speak. And it was probably a little longer, and it was definitely intense and very similar in circumstances. Although, basically very similar.
You'd think that after killing one woman by restricting her breathing, Stephen would never do it again, or at the very least, stop before it went that far. But instead, he described doing the same thing again. Once could be argued as an accident. Doing it multiple times is now a choice. And at that point, detectives didn't need to pressure Stephen at all. With every word, he was giving them exactly what they needed to lock him up for a very long time.
And then getting caught up in the aspect. I mean, are you maintaining control while meditating? Are you maintaining control while, to where you can get caught up in your own meditation thing, and that's where you kind of get out of control on the other end? Is that how?
It can for some. Is not always part of it.
Okay.
Or even it certainly can occur. Many times does, but that amazingly is not the focus, or not always the central point
Sure.
of it. For myself, the best way to describe it is, in this instance, there was no involved. There was no mediation, there was no mediation. But there was still incredible enjoyment and eroticism and lack of control and all of that things, but that definitely did not occur.
Okay.
So-
No, I understand.
Okay.
I appreciate you explaining that to me.
Yeah.
Is that similar to what happened then with Jenny, or was Jenny?
Same thing. There was no intercourse, no on my part, no anything. I was closed. She was very similar in that respect, and the dynamics were very similar.
Like Stephen just confirmed with his own words, the two situations with Jenny and Laura were practically identical, even down to how he then also concealed Laura's body in a suitcase, but this time left the body in the trunk of his car, leading us to the day where he disposed of both of the women's bodies.
I ultimately went out and didn't really dispose or attempt to conceal too hard, but took both suitcases and put them on the side of the road.
out
The
here.
same day the
Yes.
co-worker had noticed that smell. I guess it would be the following day, but that same.
Yeah, that same evening maybe.
Right. So later on, but if it's 1 or 2 in the morning, obviously it's gonna be the next day.
Right, right. And I'm thinking that probably prompted me to take that action and do that. Yeah.
Why during that time frame, from November after the second incident to, you drive around with them in the car? Were you ever worried about, man, if I get stopped by
Oh, yeah.
the police or if
Oh,
I
yeah.
get stopped?
I was all the time. All the time. I was always worried about, very common, because I was, patrol for a long time, and the common question, I had nothing to hide other than obviously what was in there. But in general, the common question, hey, you mind if we search a car? Or, they do that just to random
Sure.
checks.
Yeah, just to see what's going on.
Yeah. Or what else certainly came to mind? I was worried about an officer coming and maybe like a canine hitting on the odor for some reason.
Sure.
I don't know if the drug dog would have picked up on that, or certainly an investigative cadaver dog would have. But those things crossed my mind. Oh yeah.
In the end, digital records linked Stephen to both women. License plate data placed him near the dumping site, and he himself admitted what happened. Even though he tried to claim the deaths were accidental during breath play, investigators determined his actions were no accident. Stephen pleaded guilty in 2 states. He received 35 years in Wisconsin for the death of 19-year-old Jenny Gomez, 25 years in Minnesota for the murder of 37-year-old Laura Simonson, and another 10 years for hiding their bodies in suitcases. Altogether, Stephen Zelich was sentenced to 70 years in prison, effectively a life sentence.